Yes, good evening. My name is Wallace Gator Bradley, and I'm the president of United in Peace, Inc., and I'm the host of the Bradley Report, and I'm sure that you know that. And I want to say that I'm also a registered voter who voted early. But one of the things that I want to say, first off, is that this show wouldn't be possible without the director and the producer, who's also the chairman of United in Peace, Inc., and I'm blessed by God that she's also my wife, and that's none other than Terry Marsh. And I want to say, to God be the glory. We got a very interesting show. As you all know, there's an election that's coming up, April the 2nd. But I voted early, and it's a new Chicago way. Even though I voted early, Lord knows I vote often. So with that, I want to say, Father God, could you please allow the people of the city of Chicago to elect Tony Prewinkle, the mayor of the city of Chicago, April 2nd, 2019. Amen. And to God be the glory. You know, there's a lot of things that's happening, and we're going to discuss what's happening with Smollett. We see the attack of the Fraternal Order Police on our Cook County State's Attorney, Kim Foxx, who had nothing to do with the decision that was made in reference to Jesse Smollett, and we're going to get into that. But I see where Donald Trump is coming in, because he's a supporter of Fraternal Order Police. They support one another. Fraternal Order Police stood firm, and they are still standing firm with Van Dyke, who murdered McDonald, shot him 16 times, convicted felon now. Yet they still stand with him religiously, unapologetically. And we know that they are in support of the election of Lori Lightfoot, because I'm of the opinion that they feel that she may not enforce the decree. And one of the things that I'm knowing from seeing, and that people are bringing to my attention, we know that that regime is trying to help eradicate criminal justice reform as it stands now, up under the direction of County Board President Tony Prewinkle, who's also a mayoral candidate, which is the right choice for anyone that believes in criminal justice reform, should elect for mayor of the city of Chicago, April 2nd, 2019. When we see where all of a sudden they want to protest the state's attorney, knowing full well that it was the first deputy by the name of Joseph Magott, M-A-G-A-T-S, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He was the first assistant state's attorney that was in charge of Jesse Smollett's case. Kim Foxx had nothing to do with that. She recused herself. She spoke with representatives of Joseph Smollett when Smollett was a victim. He duped the country. He duped the world. He duped me. I was like, man, I guess somebody put a noose around that young man's neck. And regardless of his sexual orientation, you know, we got to do something to eradicate that hate. I felt the same way as everybody else, from Oprah and everybody else. And it was the right way to feel. Hate is wrong. Hate is wrong. Trump built his campaign off of hate. We see the fraternal police building their protests off of hate for hating Kim Fox, the state's attorney. When they try to run a candidate, their candidate of choice, I'm of the opinion of, and from what I'm hearing, is Jerry Joyce out of the 19th Ward. From what I'm reading, common sense, and from what I'm hearing, read between the lines, that's what's happening. And I'm saying this, it's just my opinion, and a lot of people's feelings they sharing with me. They see where Chicago is about to be Trumpized. All the supporters of Trump, if Lori Lightfoot get elected and they supporting her, that's the special interest that she's going to appease. That's how this goes. She's receiving the dark money from individuals like the Koch brothers, super ultra conservatives. Everybody now learning who Lori is. They realizing as a great lawyer that she is, she played everything up like she was being bullied, like she was being the victim. She was putting out commercials about Tony and with Burke, and no matter how Tony tell people that she gave that money back, she never fully accepted the $10,000 and came out with documentation to show that once she realized that the $10,000 had hit her account or whatever it is, they immediately returned it 6 days later. When the people found out, oh, she returned it 6 days later after she got it, then they say, well, she waited too late. But she returned it. Then she returned $116,000 from people who were friends of hers that happened to go to Burke's house for a fundraiser, where Alderman Burke allowed her to use his house for a fundraiser, long as she let him know, could you tell us who to get? Could you send us your list? On the list so we can invite them to come to this venue. Burke's house was a venue for a fundraiser. So when I see the commercials, she tied in with Burke, she tied in with Burke, she tied in with Burke, we tied in with Burke. What we tired of hearing that? The last debate, where she came and she says to Tony, could you explain to me, we got children watching, and my daughter is watching, pretty much I'm paraphrasing, and my daughter is watching, and you're saying these things about me, talking about, that's what she was saying to President Tony Preckwinkle, and you saying these things about me, and just think, you always talking about your grandchildren, they listening. And then they asked President Preckwinkle, Tony, do you have a rebuttal to what Life was saying? And Tony said, yeah, of course I do. Could you explain to me, how do you explain to your daughter and the children, my grandchildren or whatever it is, I'm paraphrasing, that, could you explain to them how you can call me a liar and a cockroach publicly, constantly? How do you explain that to your daughter and the children, or how you calling me names like this? And called her a hypocrite. And that's what she is. First off, how do you say something negative about an individual when that individual tell you who they are? Ms. Lightfoot's campaign, she's shown where she's a great, good lawyer. Call her 1 minute, please. I see you. She's saying where she's a good lawyer, a great lawyer, and she's been appointed to this, and she's been appointed to that. This is her resume. She's been appointed to this, and she's been appointed to that by this mayor, by that mayor, by Mayor Daley, former Mayor Daley, by Mayor Rahm Emanuel, to show her integrity and how she can do some things. So when Tony and her campaign come back and say, well, Lord, you've been appointed, only insiders get appointed. Oh, you're demeaning me. You're demonizing me. But you say this is who you are. So when the thing hit the news, which was in the news, and was discussed during the debate about what the judge said about what you were doing as an attorney, representing the city to where you got reprimanded, you say that's not news? Well, it was already news. It was rehashed. And we're going to get into that. But what's important about all this that I just said, all those individuals, Trump supporters, those that support Van Dyke, and the police officers that were acquitted for covering up the murder of McDonald, are the same individuals that's 10 toes down in support of Lori, and Lori knows about Laquan McDonald and Van Dyke, and know what he did and know what he stand for, and she accepts their support wholeheartedly. Caller, could you please state your name, voice your opinion?
Yeah, this is James.
Hey, James.
I look at it this way. God got the last word, and God gonna deal with them. They gotta ask the God what they're doing, and everything coming out cause of God. God got the last word.
Hey, James, you couldn't have said it no better than I. That's why I say to God be the glory. That's why I open up with a prayer, because I know at the end of the day, it's going to be God's will. I'm with you 100%. That's why I said I voted early so I can pray often. And you 100%. You 100%. You 100% on that.
And right, man, they better be real careful, because God called the last shot. And they better be real careful. Donald Trump better be real careful too, because God's going to deal with them.
Right. I thank you, my brother. Hey, I thank you, and do like your mellow Gator do. Vote early and pray often. To God be the glory. You know, with that, I got something that I want to share.
A tragic fire, made worse when the 911 call center run by Lori Lightfoot allegedly botched the response, costing lives. To cover it up, Lightfoot allegedly lied, became extremely evasive, and evidence was destroyed or deliberately withheld. A judge called her actions shocking and very, very troubling. If she wouldn't do what was right then, how will Lori Lightfoot bring in the light now?
You know, people would say that that was a negative commercial. It wasn't. It was dealing with newspaper coverage of an individual who's running for office. What do you mean by that, Gator? I've been out the penitentiary for 40 years. I've had my pardon from the governor for about 25 years. I stopped being a gangster disciple, had a press conference and did it in April of 95. I'll never forget it. It was the same year that former Alderman Dorothy Tillman beat me in a runoff. Yet, people still feel as if when they see me on the street, people like Hermine Hartman and others feel as if I just escaped the penitentiary. I'm a senior citizen, yet they try to put it in the air that I'm I'm still a gang leader or a gang enforcer. Every time they mention me in the paper, some of it been kind of good and subtle. Former gangster disciple, community activist. And I had no qualms with it because it shows from where I was to where I am. And me being perfectly focused to use all the mistakes, my mistakes, for someone else to learn from. But if I was running for office, Gator, gangster disciple, bring up old articles about what did happen before. Gangster disciples and did this and did all that, then they put my picture right there. That's what happened before when I ran for office. They're trying to hold me responsible for everybody that got shot in the streets. That's what politics is about. One showing its perception of the truth of the other. What we have to be about is that we got to deal with that is facts. Okay? Let's get back to Brother Smollett. Headlines reading, did someone somewhere clout a sweet deal for Smollett? Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. Okay, I don't know. But one of the things that's important is the fact that whatever had transpired, Kim was not the one that did it. Kim had recused herself. She wasn't the one. It was First Assistant State's Attorney, Joseph Magats. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Okay? And my thing is, why isn't the Fraternal Police, if they were so upset, really upset about Jesse, why aren't they marching to fire Mr. Joseph Magats? Why aren't they demanding that the state's attorney, Kim Foxx, fire this guy? I'm going to tell you why. Because they can't run their candidate, Jerry Joyce, against the man who made the decision about Jesse, because he's not elected. He's not the state's attorney. They know he's not the state's attorney. So people, if they know he's not the state's attorney, don't let them fool you like the state's attorney, Kim Foxx, has something to do with what Joseph did. Those Trumpites are about the trick game. Don't let them trick you. Okay? Now, Emmanuel, the mayor, wants the young man, Jesse, they want to sue Jesse. This is very interesting and very telling because they saying his actions cost the city $150,000. Now don't get me wrong. I don't want to get it twisted. What the man did, what Jesse did was wrong. In this day and age, you don't scream fire, and there is no fire. Because when it is a fire and you scream, ain't nobody coming. So now, when someone attacks someone because of hate, and if he's an African American, he scream hate. A hate crime, they're going to scratch their head, going to cross their arms, yeah, right, okay. Remember the last time African American did that? If someone from another community getting attacked because they're gay, and they're really being attacked, and people seeing them being attacked, and they're saying we don't want to get involved because of what this young man did was wrong. And one thing I do know, and I'm just speaking as an ex-felon that see the system inside and out, I know what a plea deal is. And I know that if you got a record and it's a conviction, you can get it sealed, but you can't get it expunged. You can get it sealed, but you can't get it expunged. That's why you don't see Jesse putting a motion in to get it expunged. Because once he put a motion in to get it expunged, it's going to come out that he can't get a conviction expunged. That's why they keep saying he's not exonerated. Let me tell you that again. Because I'd ask my wife, babe, this word exoneration. Exoneration. She said, baby, Google it. And of course, the genius that I am, I asked her to Google it for me. I'm slow. But she did. And again, everybody who has put in for an expungement, those are for arrest only. If you are arrested and not found guilty, a guilty is a plea deal or a conviction. Those that's in my listening audience who have went through the thing of getting an expungement or who have had a conviction, be it probation or time in the institution, know what I'm talking about. You can get that record sealed because you can't get it expunged. When you get something expunged because you have been arrested and you have beat the case, then you are fully exonerated. So for the young man to come out and say he's not guilty, he's standing up on what he said all the time, okay. Put your motion in to get an expungement so that everyone can see that you are not exonerated. So the FOP, they know you're not exonerated. They know what a sealed record means. It means that there's a form of conviction. I'm going to stay on this because I want people to understand this, because the attack that's on Kim Foxx is unjust. And it's the beginning of the eradication of the criminal justice reform that's happening in Cook County under the direction of Tony Preckwinkle and Kim Foxx. The fraternal police are mad at Kim Foxx because those individuals who have been arrested and prosecuted because of police misconduct are being freed because they was wrongfully convicted. So when you see the fraternal police running around downtown Monday on April Fool's Day, because I thought it was April Fool's joke when I first heard it, about being April 1st, then I read in the paper, this is what they're talking about doing. You look at them, and you say, how come they didn't march against the bad police officers that was engaging in police misconduct? They got individuals convicted for crimes that they didn't commit. How come they marching against those bad officers? Because all the police officers are not bad officers. But know that they are the supporters of Lightfoot that try to convince the city of Chicago that she needs to be elected mayor, and she has no experience. Tony Preckwinkle got over 27 or 28 years of experience in government. You're not going to have a police officer that hasn't experienced or went through trials and tribulations to be a police officer on the streets. I couldn't be no police officer unless I went through the training and found out what the rules are on the streets. So this election is very important. Their first play is to get the city back, and Trump will have control of Chicago through his supporters. So when they make the city, when they have the city to go from blue to red, Trump gonna have the city of Chicago, and his sympathizers gonna have the city of Chicago, getting ready for 2020. Okay, so there's a real possibility that behind the action that happened here in Chicago with the election of Lori Lightfoot, that Trump or somebody just as worse as him with his same policies will be the next president. Plan on change. We had Ronald because of change. We end up with Trump because of change. For someone to push someone that don't know and say that don't make a difference, playing with your head. And I'm saying that because I'm speaking especially or particularly seeing some of our African American leadership pushing Lori, and they know Lori is being supported by fraternal order police, the same ones that supported Van Dyke, stand up with Van Dyke today. Feel like Van Dyke had the right to do what he did to McDonald. And that guy that's the president or whatever he is of fraternal order police, if you Google him and you read what he's been saying, he's unapologetically standing with police officers that has been identified as someone that has killed an African American. And then I read in the paper about the mayor asking for Mr. Millett to give him or give the city of Chicago the $150,000 that they spent. You know, trying to find out who had committed the crime against him. Okay? And then it was brought to our attention where the top cop admits some officers looked the other way. When they say, the top cop says, he admits some officers looked the other way at police misconduct. Now, that's what the superintendent of police is saying. Tony Prewinkle said she had an issue because he was saying that he didn't either believe there was a code of silence or didn't see no instances where the code of silence may have happened. But I want you to hear this for yourself. Soon we get through with this commercial break.
Jessica? That's me. Party one.
A smile on my face, 'cause I got to love me too. Darling, I don't forget.
You still like to order champagne? Party one.
But this is real time, folks. So after this little commercial gonna come on, but the fact remains, now the superintendent says officers look the other way. Now this is Fran Spellman.
Hi everybody, I'm Fran Spielman, and this is the Fran Spielman Show, brought to you by AARP. And with us is the Soup, Superintendent Eddie Johnson. Sir, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is the week that was, wasn't it? I mean, this guy, how much more are we going to have to talk about this?
You know, hopefully, you know, at some point, we all have to recognize we have to turn the page on this thing, you know.
But we can't turn the page while all of this stuff is going on. Mark Garagos, the attorney for Jesse Smollett, literally said the case was dropped because the Chicago Police Department investigation was fatally flawed and it was going to become embarrassing.
Well, first of all, the case wasn't dropped. The deferred prosecution or diversion programs are designed for people that are guilty of low-level crimes. That's what he went through. It's not designed for innocent people. The fact that he forfeited his bond and agreed to community service, that's what guilty people do.
Right.
Innocent people go to court
Right.
and present their case in front of a judge or a jury, and then they're proclaimed innocent, not guilty. So all of that is just rhetoric, and that's fine. You know, at the end of the day.
It's not fine with people, though.
Well, you know what? It's for me, as the superintendent of this police department, I have to turn the page and focus on what's really important in the city. We're getting ready to go into the summer months, so I have to focus on violent crime and keeping the city safe.
Right, but you weren't even given a heads up about this dropping of the charges. You're at a police graduation with the mayor, and they're in the secret courtroom before, and reporters had to literally scurry to get there. I mean, what kind of relationship is this with the state's attorney that they couldn't call you and tell you about this?
Well, you know what? Listen, Fran, since I've been superintendent, my relationship with Kim Fox has been great. You know, but you have to understand, relationships with the police and the state's attorney's office can often be akin to a marriage. You know, we don't always agree on
It's a
things.
divorce sometimes, isn't it?
Could be, but you know what, at the end of the day, all the police officers, the men and women of CPD, and the prosecutors over there at the state's attorney's office, all of us have the same mission, and that is to keep this city safe. So we don't always agree on everything, and that's just part of it. You know, but the fact that we didn't know, okay, no, we didn't find out until we were at the graduation. But at the end of the day, you know, that's a class 4 felony. It's the lowest type of felony that we have. We utilize deferred prosecutions and diversion programs all the time. And again, that's designed for people that are guilty of a crime.
So are you saying then that there was no way he was going to ever be convicted of anything other than a class 4?
No, what I'm saying saying is this: I stand by that thorough investigation that the detectives did. You heard the prosecutor say the other day they had no issue with the investigation. They still think he's guilty of a crime. Now, what his team says, that's what they get paid to do. So
what
I
are
don't pay
they just
attention to
blowing
that.
smoke? Because why? Because there's an ongoing FBI investigation of the letter that he
No, I
sent?
think they're just saying that because that's what they get paid to do. They get paid to represent him. If they really want to show his innocent, go to court.
Right, but what was the case that you put together? I mean, the mayor has talked about only a sliver of evidence was presented. If that file is ever reopened or opened, what will we find? How much evidence will we see that this was a hoax?
Well, what you'll find is that the facts that we laid out in the bond proffer supports the fact that it was a hoax. Now, if they have something that they have not presented, if they have something that disputes that, then fine, but you present that in court. But I can guarantee you that the investigation that the Chicago Police Department conducted was a thorough one, and the facts bear it out that this was not a hate crime.
And yet, the President of the United States, who is weighed in Jussie Smollett's favor and said, oh, how horrible that this happened in Chicago, is now demanding an investigation of by the FBI and the DOJ into how the charges were dropped. And the mayor said, butt out, stay on the sidelines. What do you think of that? And what could the FBI find if they did investigate this?
Well, again, I can't speak for the FBI. I certainly won't speak for the president. What I can tell you is this. CPD, we did our investigation. We turned over the evidence to the state's attorney. They indicted him and then added an additional 16 counts with a grand jury. That speaks for itself. We did our part. Now it's up to the prosecution to take it forward. We are going to focus on the summer months and the violence in the city to tap it down.
But the moral outrage, I think, is that he didn't apologize to the city of Chicago, and in fact is saying you owe him an apology. Are you ready to give him one? I mean, talk about unmitigated gall. I think that takes the cake, doesn't it?
It's a little amusing to me, but I tell you, friend, I've been a cop for 30 years. I've seen disappointments in court throughout my career, so it is what it is. And like I said, at some point we have to turn the page and move on.
But how demoralizing has it been to the rank and file cops?
Well, you know what? Cops are resilient people. As I said, we go to court all the time and don't get the outcomes that we're looking for. So we're accustomed to it. So what I can tell you is this. In the days since that's happened, cops have taken 50 illegal weapons off the streets of Chicago. They're still investigating murder cases. They're still investigating shootings. So they're doing what they're supposed to do. We move on. That's what we do. We move on.
When Kim Foxx called you and said, listen, we want you to transfer it over to the FBI, she had gotten a call from Tina Chen, the cloud-heavy lawyer who was the chief of staff to Michelle Obama. What did you think when you got that call?
Kim and I talk all the time about different cases. She speaks to victims as well as I do. When I'm in the communities, oftentimes victims of crimes will walk up to me and give me information. So that's nothing unusual. And it's certainly not unusual for the superintendent to talk to the state's attorney. So we did have a conversation about it. I told her I would look at it, and I did. And at the end of the day, we kept it with the Chicago Police Department.
And why did you do that?
Because we were doing an exhaustive investigation. I was confident of the investigation that we were doing. And let me just make this clear, too. The FBI was involved in this from the very beginning.
Because of the letter?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we were getting support on both ends, on the end of the alleged hoax and the letter. So, they were already involved in the investigation.
Right, but not every day do you get a call from Tina Chen. And that's why Kim Foxx called you. Did she tell you that Tina Chen
I didn't get a call from Tina Chen, and no, she didn't tell me who
Shouldn't she have
contacted.
told you that?
Not necessarily, she...
This is a clout person is at the highest levels.
Well, that may be true, but again, it's not unusual for me and Kim Foxx to talk about different cases, and we don't always agree, so that doesn't send off any alarm bells in my mind.
But I mean, she really blew it here, didn't she?
Well, you know what? I'm not going to go there. They have prosecutorial discretion in terms of what they do, so. You have to ask them about what they did and why they decided to pursue the avenue.
Well, she didn't even really formally recuse herself.
Again, I'm not going to get it. My job is to be a cop and to
You want to stay out of the politics.
That's exactly right.
And yet, here we are. We're in a mayor's race.
Mm-hmm.
Your future is up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Does it bother you to hear your future bandied about with Tony Preckwinkle saying, I'm getting rid of him because he won't acknowledge the code of silence? And then we have Lori Lightfoot saying, well, the jury is out. I want to have a conversation about the summer violence. First of all, you have a pension that's coming up and it's going to be fully vested next month. Is that right, sir?
No, it's fully vested in April of 2020.
Okay, so you need another year to stay. Do you want to stay under a new mayor?
Well, you know what? I want to do what's best for CPD in the city of Chicago. And I think that we have shown that we're making significant progress. You know, when you look at where our crime was in 2016, believe it or not, our gun violence, since we started those strategic decision support centers, we have cut the gun crime by 50%. 50% since 2017. Right now,
which was a very high figure.
It was. You know, we're not satisfied, you know, but it is progress. Our robberies, burglaries, and thefts are at 20-year lows right now. Right now. So despite everything that's going on, we've still managed to bring crime down. Now, I fully acknowledge that in 2016 we had a horrible year, but we still have to acknowledge the progress we're making. We're not happy or excited about it, but it is progress. By no means are we celebrating or bragging, but it's still progress because we could have easily went in the other direction. So what I'll say is this: it's not about Eddie Johnson, it's about the continuity of CPD and about moving Chicago forward and keeping the city safe. That's what it's about.
Okay, but do you want to stay as superintendent under a new administration?
Well, yeah, I think we still have some things to do. And the one thing that I want to do, Fran, and I've said this from the very beginning, you know, I love this city, I love this department, and I really, really want to see a time where the entire city can be proud of their police department. We're not quite yet there. We've made some progress in areas where we had some challenges in terms of the relationship between CPD and those communities, and it's still there. It's not where we want it to be, but before I leave, I would like to see a day when the people on the South and West Sides can say, you know, hey, I don't always agree with the police department, but I think they are trying to do the right thing.
Right, but what about this issue with Preckwinkle saying you have not acknowledged the code of silence? And she points to the deposition you gave, and she said we have to acknowledge that there is a code of silence before we can move forward and get past it.
Listen, you know, when I first became superintendent, I think you asked me this question.
Yeah.
Did I believe there was racism in the Chicago Police Department? And I've said from day one, there's racism in America, racism in Chicago, so it just follows there would be racism in the city, in the Chicago Police Department. I don't know how much clearer I have to be about that.
Well, it's different than a code of silence.
In my deposition, I never said there wasn't anything, but I said that in my career, I've never seen cops say, gather around, we're going to do this or do that. What I would tell you is this: if there are officers that are conspiring to cover up things and not tell the truth about it, in my tenure as superintendent and as I've come up the ranks, I've dealt with those people up to separation. There's no room in the Chicago Police Department for people to ignore misconduct. Now, what I would say to you is this: I think the majority of officers out here are trying to do the right thing. Do I think there might be officers that look the other way? Yeah, I do.
That's a code of silence, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you can call it what you want to call it, but what I will say to you is I think there are a lot of reasons why cops might not report misconduct. If they see their partner engage in misconduct, they may look the other way. Do I think there's issues in that regard? Yeah, but I don't think the entire department, I'm not going to indict the entire department for the acts of certain individuals. When those acts are brought to my attention, then I deal with them accordingly, because we just don't have any room in the police department for that kind of action. And I don't think that the police department is any different from any other profession where colleagues ignore certain things that their colleagues might do. But the point is, if I'm made aware of it, then I deal with it.
But so there is a code of silence among some.
Well, I believe, again, that some people will ignore certain things.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
and
a code
again,
of silence.
you can call it what you want, you know, if
But
that's
I mean,
what you want to call
why
it.
hesitate to call it that?
Well, when I look in the dictionary, I don't see code of silence. This is a term and a phrase that people come up with, and that's fine. It means different things to different people. So we can call it that. I'm fine with that. I just told you, if I see those types of things occurring, then I would deal with those individuals.
Okay, so Lori Lightfoot wants to see your summer violence plan. What is it?
The summer violence plan, we're working on it now. whomever becomes mayor, we will be prepared to present it to that person. Of course, I don't want to lay it out right now. I'll wait until.
Oh, go on.
But you know what, friend? What I'll tell you is this: we know our summer months are coming up. We know we have certain holidays that historically have been flashpoints. We know we have historic hotspots in the city. So all of that goes into the summer plan. And so those things will come out in detail in the coming weeks. But I can assure you, the summertime doesn't sneak up on the Chicago Police Department. So we've been working on this for months now. Mary Emanuel always wants us to start briefing him, giving him drafts, literally right now. And so we've been briefing him on what the summer plan will be. But it's not finalized yet, but it will be in the coming few days.
You know, I'm glad that the producer and the director say, hey, it's our responsibility to share information as we get it. And that was a very good interview, in my opinion, for me to share with you so you can hear what they're saying out of their mouths as opposed to saying, hey, this is what Gator said. The fact of the matter is this: truth is coming out and prevailing. And President Tony Prewinkle has said what she said about the code of silence. Rahm Emanuel has acknowledged the code of silence. I believe somewhere they may have even given the impression that the code of silence exists, but I don't believe he came out and said it out of his mouth based on the John Burge cases. So when you got a bunch of police officers that believe that John Burge didn't do no wrong with police torture, with individuals that's coming out of the penitentiary because they was wrongfully convicted, and when our leaders know these things and still support Lori, and they know Lori is in league with them officers that support the cover-up of police misconduct, they can say, look the other way, or whatever that is. I'm saying this and I'm standing on this because our babies, our grandchildren, and in my case, great-grandchildren, don't know about the evils of John Burge and the state's attorney that allowed that to fester and covered it up and then became a mayor because he was in support or against support from officers, like the same type of officers that supporting Lori Lightfoot that's going to become the mayor if we don't elect Tony Prewinkle, and she will be over the enforcement of that police decree and will have a lot of say-so on what's going to be accepted at the negotiation table of the new police or the FOP contract. And I believe that under Tony Prewinkle, there's a chance that the police and community relations can become a whole lot better than it is today. And I believe that if those relations are conducive to an understanding about the eradication of crime, senseless violence, shootings and killings within the streets of Chicago, that's what's needed for Chicago. And you got to have someone who know how to do this. And that's Tony Prewinkle, hands down. 19 years as alderman. Every alderman works their ward as if they are a mayor. And what I mean by that is that they talk with the vested interest within the area that they have been elected to represent. And they talk with the police commanders, just like if they were the mayor, they would be talking to the police superintendent. Lori do not have that experience. There's a budget that's going to be coming up October of this year. She talking about having a conversation. There's no time or no room for no conversation. You got to have an individual going to come there and hit the ground that understand what has to be done to balance the budget. Her mind is already locked on, not Lori, talking about President Prewinkle. Mind is already locked on what has to be done when she get in to make the hard choices. Lori talking about a conversation. Everywhere I've heard her speak, I was on the west side yesterday, 29th Ward, and I went and heard her speak. When they come and they talk about what you gonna do to help with the budget or whatever it is, where you gonna get the revenue, she talking about having a conversation. All the things that she talking about she wanna do, it's gonna cost money to do that. Where are you gonna get the money from? You telling the people that supporting you, you ain't looking to raise no taxes. Where are you gonna get the money from? The revenue to help run the city come from taxes. The revenue generating things that we had to help create revenue, where we went out to raise all them taxes, former Mayor Daley sold them off. So this is beyond a conversation. You got to have a plan that's ready to be implemented once you're elected. And people, if you elect someone that's talking about having a conversation, and it's going to take them 6 months to have a conversation, this city is going to be in dire straits. Just like Ronna had the city messed up for 3 years, 6 months will put this city in dire straits. I don't fault her because she don't know. She couldn't know. Only reason Tony knows because he got the experience. Tried and proven. So it's on us. Everybody talking about it don't make a difference, it's going to be a black woman. But you got to have the right black woman. Because it's 2 black women. The right woman is the one that knows what to do. The wrong woman is the one that don't know what to do. Lori don't know what to do, so she's the wrong woman to elect for the mayor of the city of Chicago. Tony is the right woman to elect. When you go in there and vote, punch 23. And please elect Ms. Conyers for she's running for the city treasurer. Last name is Irvin. Melissa Conyers Irvin. Please vote for her for the treasurer. And you know what they say? A man don't always know what to do, but a woman can do it. And Tony is the right woman to do it. So brothers, as I get ready to close, those that are former felons, you got a right to vote. Please vote to elect Tony, because her platform of criminal justice reform is a policy that came from brothers and sisters that was locked away in the system unjustly, the wrongfully convicted, became a policy because of us. If Lori Lightfoot get elected, it's going to be the eradication of criminal justice reform and wrongfully conviction advocacy. Caller, I see you. Could you please state your name and voice your opinion? Caller?
Yes, hi. This is TJ Hughes.
Hey, TJ, how you doing?
How you doing, my brother? You're looking good. I'm watching you on TV. You're looking real good.
Oh, thank you.
Good. And I just want to offer my support. I think you are 100% correct. And I will definitely be voting for Tony Prewinkle for our mayor. And I will be voting for Ms. Irving as our state treasurer. And I will have anybody and everybody that I know to do the same.
Thank you. And I want to say this too, TJ. Yeah, I call her TJ because I know her mother too. I know her mother too, but that's a different story. But I want to say this. After you vote early, please pray often and ask God if he would allow the people in the city of Chicago to elect Tony, the mayor, April 2nd, 2019. To God be the glory. Well, it looks like it's that time. I must have been having a lot of fun because time went fast. But I thank you for allowing me to take your time and share what the conversation that Fran was having with Superintendent Johnson. And please, take that you know that you got from us, from this show, the Bradley Report, and share it. We got to make a common sense decision. You got to elect Tony Prewinkle, the mayor of the city of Chicago, April 2nd, 2019. You can't tell your children they got to go to school, get an education or get experience so you can rise up, and then hear someone that's experienced, and then hear someone come and tell you elect someone that don't have that experience. No, no, no. And then KNOW, know that you must elect Tony Prewinkle, April the 2nd, to be the mayor of the city of Chicago. And let's get to work. Let's make it do what it do. And like my grandson be telling me, hey, Pops, I like the way you're walking, like you're talking. I voted early so that I can pray often, asking God to allow the people in the city of Chicago to elect Tony Prewinkle, the mayor, April the 2nd, 2019. To God be the glory.